Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at something really unique. It's a very singular, very concise piece of source material,
It is.
and it reframes what is probably the simplest human expression, a smile into this highly rigorous, almost technical spiritual
A
practice.
spiritual technology, really.
Exactly. We're delving into a text titled Ke Shanj, which, translates to smiling to God. It's part of a larger work called Shanj, or The Attached Text by Mahmoud Ghazal.
And it's important to frame this for you, the listener. This isn't about, broad theological argument.
No, not at all. This deep dive is all about mechanics. It's like a user manual.
It is. The source gives a very specific, detailed instruction set for achieving and then maintaining this profoundly intimate spiritual connection.
It essentially takes the universal language of a smile and just blueprints its transformation into a private, two-way conversation.
That's a perfect way to put it. Our mission here, really, is to move past the superficial idea of a smile and see it as the author intended.
As an instrument.
A precise instrument. We're going to explore how this basic, accessible act is leveraged into a sophisticated, multi-layered form of spiritual communication that is, and this is the critical part, based on immediate and sustained reciprocity.
Right. So for you listening, this is a look at a kind of spirituality that isn't driven by, say, complex dogma or sacrifice.
Not at all. It's driven by intentional, joyful affirmation.
And that brings us to the core premise, the thing that makes this text so compelling.
Yep.
The source posits that the initial simple smile, it isn't just the first step on a ladder.
No, it's not a one-and-done kind of thing.
It's the engine. It's the perpetually necessary engine, the foundational key you need both to get that connection and, I think more importantly, to keep it going indefinitely.
It creates this fascinating closed-loop system, and it's powered by the self. You input intentional joy, and the system responds with validation with a deeper connection. But the moment you stop providing that initial input, that joyful intention, the system just stops. It suggests a dynamic, continuous relationship that depends entirely on maintaining the frequency of that first smile.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to explore the granular details of this system. We'll look at the mechanics of what the text calls the internal smile.
Which is fascinating in itself.
Then we'll get into the promise of an immediate divine response and how that affects you, physically and mentally. And then finally, the breakthrough into an actual explicit dialogue.
A dialogue of thoughts and words.
Exactly. The whole pathway, according to the text, culminates in spiritual and physical communication with God. And we are going to dissect exactly how the author claims such a monumental breakthrough can be achieved through really such a tiny action. Okay, so section 1. It really sets the stage with what I think is the most impactful phrase in the whole text. It immediately elevates the smile way beyond just a feeling. The command is so definitive.
It is. It's so see, says Swingser.
Make your smile a means of communication with God.
And that linguistic choice there is so vital. The author chooses AAC. That translates far more, I guess, mechanically, than something like method of devotion or expression of love.
Right. It's a communication tool, a
Yeah.
conduit, a channel, almost like a piece of tech.
Precisely. It's the language of engineering applied to a spiritual practice. And that demands intentionality. It's not about passive piety.
I find that technical framing so interesting because it immediately changes your agency as the practitioner, doesn't it? You're not just, sitting around waiting for inspiration to strike.
You are initiating contact.
You are initiating contact. By defining the smile as a communication channel, you're engaging in a deliberate signal transmission. You're setting up the modality through which the conversation has to begin.
And that sets up an immediate expectation of a response. It validates your effort from the very beginning.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. If I tell you to tune a radio to 98.5 FM to hear a message, I'm implicitly confirming two things. One, that the frequency exists, and two, that there's a transmitter on the other side broadcasting on it.
Ah, I see. So the smile isn't just you talking to yourself.
Exactly. It's an active, spiritual, outgoing message. It's the spiritual equivalent of tuning that radio to a specific, clear channel. And the text implies that if the channel's open and the signal is clear, the transmission is guaranteed.
So it moves from an internal monologue to an interdivine exchange.
That's the perfect phrase for it.
And that expectation of dialogue, that's what brings us right into the dual nature of the practice.
Yeah.
Because the source is very clear. This channel isn't just physical.
Not at all. It has to be rooted in these four specific internal dimensions, and the facial expression is just the amplifier.
It's a comprehensive, multimodal map of the self. The text makes sure your entire being is engaged in the transmission. If the channel relies on clarity and power,
The power comes from engaging every single faculty you have.
but it starts simply. It starts with accessibility. The physical smile, the or the facial smile. It's the concrete anchor. Why do you think the text mandates starting there?
Well, it grounds the abstract intention in physical reality. The facial expression acts as a somatic trigger. It's the simplest point of entry because we, as humans, have direct control over our facial muscles.
That makes sense. If it started by demanding, achieve perfect spiritual alignment first, you might never get started.
You'd be stuck.
Hmm.
The external smile prompts the internal shift. It's a form of somatic feedback where the body actively participates in and encourages the spiritual state you're aiming for. You smile, and your brain gets a little kick of positive chemistry. It's biohacking your way into devotion.
But the heavy lifting, as you said, it happens internally. The text insists on smiling not just with the face, but with these 4 specific internal dimensions. It lists them.
With your heart, your spirit or soul, your mind or intellect, and your imagination.
It's a holistic 4-pronged commitment.
It is, and we should probably break these down, maybe starting with the most familiar and moving toward the more abstract, because the subtle differences between them. That's where the real genius of the text lies.
Okay, let's do that. We'll start with the heart. This feels pretty universal, right? The emotional, the moral center. So smiling with the heart, that means making sure the external smile is rooted in real emotion, in gratitude or reverence.
Exactly. The heart smile ensures sincerity. It means the joy you're projecting is sourced from a place of deep trust, of acceptance of the divine, and it's free from all the immediate worldly attachments and anxieties.
So if your physical smile is a mask,
Your heart smile makes it real. It's an act of deep emotional alignment. It's the core of your being saying, I accept this relationship with unconditional love.
okay, that feels clear. But next we have the spirit or soul. Now, if the heart is about sincere emotion, what's the subtle distinction here? What does it mean to smile from the spirit?
This is more of an existential dimension. To smile with the spirit is to achieve what you could call existential resonance. It's less about a transient emotional state, which is the heart's domain, and more about the fundamental nature of your soul, recognizing and affirming its unbreakable connection to its source.
Can you give an analogy for that?
Sure. Think of the heart smile as the feeling of coming home after a long, difficult journey. It's emotional relief. The spirit smile is the deep, unconditional peace of realizing you are home and you never actually left.
Ah, okay.
It's a smile of belonging, a fundamental alignment with your origin.
That distinction is really important for anyone trying this. The heart manages feelings, the spirit manages your very sense of self and purpose. Okay, but now we move to the cognitive realm, and this is where the practice really challenges conventional ideas of devotion for me.
You mean the mind or intellect?
Yes. How in the world does one smile with the mind? It seems to imply total cognitive compliance, which, for a thinking person, can be immensely difficult.
It does suggest a critical, active intellectual effort. And the mind smile is not about emotional denial or, ignoring problems. It's an intellectual choice.
A choice to do what?
A choice to acknowledge and appreciate the divine wisdom, the purpose, the order of things, even when your immediate circumstances or your logic tells you it's all chaos. It's the intellect intentionally choosing to rest in confidence, to discard doubt and mental conflict.
I have to challenge the practicality of that a little bit. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're grappling with a really serious, complex ethical problem, or maybe just the classic problem of suffering in the world, is the text really suggesting you just smile through that intense intellectual conflict? Doesn't that feel a bit like intellectual escapism?
That's a necessary and a great challenge. The text doesn't imply you solve the dilemma instantly. It's more about fostering intellectual trust. It's a cognitive affirmation that the fundamental structure of existence is wise and that it transcends the temporary limits of your human logic.
So you're not abandoning reason.
Not at all. It's the intellect's willing itself into a state of openness. It's your mind saying, look, I may not understand this piece of the puzzle, but I trust the ultimate design of the puzzle itself. It's what prevents the mind from just spiraling down into paralyzing anxiety or doubt.
So it shifts the mind from critique mode.
To receptive mode. It is the mental decision to celebrate reality, regardless of your limited perception of it.
So it's not abandoning logic, it's about aligning your logic with a higher principle of acceptance. It sounds like an internal, high-level firewall against anxiety.
Exactly. And this leads us to the final and maybe the most abstract and powerful component, the imagination. Smiling with your imagination. This shows up in a lot of different disciplines as a kind of spiritual technology.
How is it used here?
The imagination is treated as the creative faculty that builds our internal reality. So, to smile with your imagination is to engage in conscious visualization. The practitioner is actively using their creative power to conjure up images of the divine response, or to visualize the self as being completely bathed in light and connection and joy.
So this is where the practice gets really active. It's almost like internal engineering. You're not just feeling something, you are actively creating it.
Yes, it means intentionally directing that powerful current of your creative thought away from fears, away from self-criticism or worldly chaos, and steering it directly toward the specific state of already achieved connection.
The imagination smile is the internal sculptor.
It is, constantly shaping your mental landscape to reflect the desired outcome of peace and dialogue. It's the practical application of intentional focus. It ensures that even your subconscious, internal creative monologue is harmoniously directed toward the divine.
Wow. So, if we look at this whole 4-point internal checklist, sincere emotion from the heart, existential peace from the soul, cognitive acceptance from the mind, and creative visualization from the imagination, the facial smile is really just the launch button.
It's the readily available launch mechanism for this massive internal engine.
The smile itself is simple, but the integrated internal practice is incredibly sophisticated. It demands total participation.
It demands total integration. And the source implies that this preparation, this total engagement, is what guarantees the success of the promise we're about to talk about. Because the communication channel, having been activated and powered up by all 4 of these modalities, is now finally ready for the incoming signal.
Okay, so if Section 1 was all about the exhaustive human input required, Section 2 is where we see the payoff. It immediately addresses the response.
The feedback loop.
Right, the feedback loop. It transforms this from just preparatory work into immediate reciprocity. Here's where the investment pays off, and it pays off right away. The text says, "Si fai esisquactu," we'll say Jack.
The benefits are that God smiles back at you also.
And that's a truly profound spiritual validation. It's not delayed. It's not something you have to wait for. It's presented as immediate and absolute.
It is. The moment the human practitioner intentionally activates their internal and external smile, the divine responds in kind. It completely changes the relationship from one of, distant command and obedience to something intimate, joyful, and instantaneous.
The practitioner is validated, and not by some complex mystical sign or a vision,
but by a parallel, recognizable affirmation. You smile, a smile is returned.
This immediate feedback is so critical because it encourages the next necessary step, which is the role of repetition. This isn't a solitary prayer that gets answered once. The source really emphasizes that the benefits begin and, more importantly, deepen lusashana with repetition.
And that raises a question, doesn't it? If the response is immediate, why do you need to repeat it?
Exactly. Why keep doing it?
Because the initial response, while it's real, it might be subtle. It might be a fleeting sensation, a quick moment of profound peace. Repetition is what ensures that fleeting moment gets forged into a permanent state of being.
It's conditioning.
It's conditioning the entire system, mind, heart, and spirit, for chronic awareness. The repetition transforms the act from an effortful input into an effortless, sustained reality.
I like the radio analogy we used earlier. It's the difference between just finding the right frequency for a second.
Right, that's the first smile.
And then leaving the dial set there permanently. That's the repetition. You're just holding an open circuit, allowing that divine signal to permeate every aspect of your awareness.
Absolutely. Repetition builds spiritual muscle memory across those 4 internal dimensions we talked about. It allows the intentional choice of the mind smile to become an effortless habit. The external facial smile, which was at first just a trigger, now becomes the natural external manifestation of the deep internal resonance that repetition has created.
And this brings us to the very heart of the practice's integrated benefits. The practitioner starts to feel that incoming divine smile. And the text is incredibly specific here. It describes the feeling manifesting across 7 highly specific areas of the self.
This is the evidence that the communication channel is fully open. The scope is completely holistic. It covers every spectrum of human existence.
And we really have to spend some time here because these 7 points, they're not arbitrary. They detail the depth of the integration. They show how the divine presence doesn't just, settle in one place. It permeates the cognitive, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the whole person.
Yes, and they build on the initial 4. Let's start with the anchors. The heart and the face.
Okay, so 1, in your heart, this must be the deepening of that emotional sincerity we started with, right? Into something more stable.
Into unshakable foundational peace. When the divine smile manifests here, it replaces emotional turbulence, anxiety, deep-seated fears. It replaces all that with an undeniable warmth, a quiet, unshakable assurance. This is the core engine running perfectly.
So if the human heart smiled with sincere love,
The divine response here is the experience of unconditional acceptance.
so the heart smile is felt as a cessation of internal conflict, a kind of deep tissue relaxation for the spirit.
Exactly. It's that inner silence you achieve, not through effortful focus, but through effortless alignment.
Then 2, in your face. This is the physical witness to that inner state. The text implies a transition here, from an intentional act of smiling to a state of natural, radiant contentment.
Yes, the outer expression becomes a permanent reflection of that inner integration. This is the external validation for the world to see. It's no longer a social smile or a forced smile.
So people might actually notice a change.
They would.
Yeah.
The face becomes illuminated, maybe through subtle changes in expression or posture or even a different kind of clarity in the eyes. This natural radiance is the visible proof of internal success. The body has been sort of purified by the light of the inner small, and now it acts as a silent magnet, attracting peace and positive engagement from others.
It's like the face shifts from being a group of muscles you control to an antenna that's constantly radiating the divine signal it's receiving.
A beautiful way to put it. Now let's move to the cognitive realm. 3. In your mind, this is the intellectual payoff. This is profound clarity and stillness.
So when the divine smile manifests in the mind, it eradicates all that mental clutter, the ceaseless internal monologue, the intellectual conflict.
That's the promise.
That sounds incredibly appealing in a world of just constant information overload. We're all plagued by cognitive dissonance and noise. The mind smile, when it's received, must feel like hitting a mute button on all that chaos.
It does. It's the feeling of total cognitive alignment. Complex problems might appear simpler. Your thought process just effortlessly aligns with a higher wisdom. It's a mind at rest, not through exhaustion, but through supreme confidence.
So the earlier human effort of the mind smile, that active intellectual trust, is now validated by the experience of mental freedom.
It's the reward for that trust.
Okay, moving from the mind back to that existential foundation. 4. In your spirit soul, we talked about the initial spirit smile being about a sense of belonging. So the integrated feeling here must be the absolute confirmation of that belonging.
Precisely. If the heart feels peace, the spirit feels absolute, unassailable connectedness. It feels purpose. The divine smile here is the profound recognition that the artificial separation between the self and the divine is dissolved.
It's an existential certainty.
It is, and it manifests as absolute purpose. It makes you immune to that spiritual vertigo that comes from feeling lost or adrift in the world. This is the highest form of spiritual recognition, where your very existence is fully affirmed.
And now let's revisit the imagination, which we called a powerful spiritual technology in the first phase. 5. In your imagination, how does the imagination change once it starts receiving that reciprocal smile?
It's a complete shift. The imagination moves from being a tool for intentional visualization to becoming a field of pure, sanctified perception.
What does that mean, sanctified perception?
It means that when the divine smile manifests here, the practitioner's entire inner visual life is purified. Instead of the imagination dwelling on potential fears or anxieties or past regrets, which is the common human state, right?
Right. Our minds tend to go there.
Instead, it is now used only to conceive of beauty, goodness, potential, and connection. The creative faculty itself is now aligned, and it acts solely as a receptor for positive inspiration.
It's like cleaning a stained glass window. The light was always there, but now the medium through which we perceive it, our imagination, is completely clear.
Exactly. Now, the final 2 points are crucial because they act as a bridge. They connect the spiritual experience to your day-to-day physical and emotional life. So 6, in your feeling sensation. He says it refers to your general, subtle physical and environmental awareness.
This is the somatic confirmation, then. The divine smile manifesting in sensation. That must mean a constant, gentle feeling of physical well-being.
It's a subtle lightness in the body, a lack of tension, a feeling of physical harmony. The whole system is running efficiently. It's the physical confirmation that the internal spiritual work has had a tangible grounding effect on your material self.
Like the low-level hum of a perfectly tuned machine.
That's a great way to think of it. A physical affirmation that the spiritual work is real.
And finally, let's go back to a distinction we made earlier. 7. In your emotions. How is this different from the deep foundational piece of the heart?
It's about scale and volatility. The heart deals with the core, unconditional state. Your bedrock. Mashi-ir emotions refer to the transient day-to-day feelings.
The fleeting irritation in traffic, the minor joy from a good cup of coffee, the passing sadness.
Exactly. The divine smile acts as a stabilizer here. It doesn't eliminate these emotions, you're still human, but it significantly raises the baseline of your emotional existence. You become more resilient to minor upsets, and when negative emotions do arise, they are quickly anchored back into that fundamental state of joy and compassion that's been established in the heart.
So if the heart smile is the deep foundation, the bedrock, then the emotion smile is like a skilled manager of the daily weather system, the atmosphere.
Perfect analogy.
It ensures no momentary storm can undermine the foundation.
A perfect analogy. And this complete integration across all 7 points, cognitive, physical, emotional, and spiritual, it just demonstrates that this practice is designed for a total transformation. That initial simple act of the smile, through repetition and reciprocity, becomes a new, elevated, and perpetual mode of existence. And now the stage is finally set for the ultimate communication breakthrough.
Okay, so we've tracked the entire journey. From the intentional 4-part internal smile, through the integrated experience of the divine response across those 7 domains. Now we get to the apex.
The summit.
What happens after the feeling of the divine smile is fully integrated across your heart, your mind, your body. The text describes a decisive breakthrough. At Sayam back to this Meksha, communication with God happens through speech and thoughts. This is the culmination. This is the shift from a subtle emotional or sensory experience to explicit cognitive dialogue.
The smile validated that the channel existed. The 7 integrated feelings open that channel fully. And now, the communication itself becomes clear and dual-directional. It's experienced as both conscious dialogue and intuitive knowledge.
That's a quantum leap, isn't it? The practitioner moves from just feeling a presence to experiencing clear internal promptings, intuitive knowledge, or a direct response that's perceived as an explicit thought, or even an internal verbalization.
And the combination of speech and thoughts is very nuanced. The speech component suggests a conscious, maybe even an articulated form of internal conversation. You ask a question, you get a clear, purposeful internal reply.
Like a real conversation.
But then the thoughts component implies something else. It implies intuitive, nonverbal knowledge transfer, the certainty, the aha moment, that profound understanding that just arrives, fully formed, without you needing to articulate it in language.
So in practical terms, this suggests you develop the ability to distinguish between your own internal mental noise and the clear, helpful, purposeful guidance that you're receiving through this channel.
Exactly. The communication has moved from the symbolic, the smile, to the clear and explicit, the words and the thoughts.
The spiritual connection moves past the realm of vague mysticism and into a clear, actionable form of understanding. The practitioner can now not only send a message, but receive detailed guidance in a way that feels undeniable. And it all started with that simple facial smile.
It did, but the text throws in a crucial, non-negotiable condition right at this point of achievement.
Right. It suggests this state is fragile. It's easily lost if you relax your vigilance.
Absolutely. This is the crucial warning that prevents the practitioner from becoming complacent. So you give Sachin so, with never forgetting to smile to God.
Never. But wait, if you've already reached the goal, the level of clear communication through speech and thoughts, why is the smile still mandatory? Hasn't the vehicle served its purpose? You've arrived at the destination.
This is the most profound philosophical point in the entire text.
Yeah.
And the source gives the reason explicitly. And your source gives a reason explicitly.
It is boosted.
Because this is what reached you to the goal of spiritual and physical communication with God.
The initial act, that conscious, intentional, holistic smile, it wasn't just the key that unlocked the door. It remains the essential power source. It's the generator. It's the frequency maintainer that keeps that open circuit active.
So the lesson is that even the most advanced state of connection requires perpetual foundational effort. It just completely defies the notion of a set it and forget it spirituality.
It does. You have to continuously affirm the foundational joy, the acceptance, the gratitude that created the channel in the first place. It implies that the state created by the smile, that integrated emotional, cognitive, and imaginative projection, isn't just the result of the connection.
It is its necessary, continuous prerequisite. If the smile ceases, the engine that powers the spiritual and physical communication falters, and the clarity of the dialogue will fade. Maintaining the foundational practice is maintaining the ultimate state.
Which brings us back full circle to that final totalizing definition of the goal. Shinpei, spiritual and physical communication with God.
And we have to ask, what does the inclusion of Shinye physical really mean at the end point?
It has to mean that the connection isn't purely ethereal. It's anchored. It's anchored into the totality of your physical existence.
Right. The success has to manifest tangibly. We saw this in the 7 integrated points. The face radiated something, the physical sensation was one of lightness, the emotions were stable. The text confirms that the spiritual goal leads to genuine, observable, and felt physical transformation. Maybe increased vitality, measurable peace, and undeniable positive aura.
The spiritual goal, which started with the simplest movement of the facial muscles, is physically manifested and perpetually maintained by that exact same simple act, amplified by all of that internal intentionality.
It's an elegant, complete system, and it's all driven by a single input: intentional joy directed toward the divine.
It really is a remarkable blueprint for sustained inner work. It transforms a universally accessible human tool, the smile, into the vehicle for achieving the highest, most intimate form of dialogue. And the rigor isn't in the difficulty of the task, but in the consistency of the intention. #OutUTRO. So we've concluded our deep dive into the blueprint provided by the source material, Smiling to God. We've explored how this very concise text transforms a simple gesture into a comprehensive system for connection.
We really cover the 3 main stages. First, we look at the smile as a deliberate, dual-natured communication tool that Alinzians are going, requiring that intentional effort across the face in those 4 internal domains: heart, spirit, mind, and imagination.
Right. Then second, we detailed the immediate reciprocal divine response, the smile that comes back to you, which validates the practice, and then integrates itself across 7 specific points in your total self, transforming your cognitive, emotional, and even your physical reality.
And finally, we explore the achievement of that explicit communication through speech and thoughts, the ultimate goal of intimate dialogue. Yet, and this is the key, it's a goal that remains perpetually reliant on that initial, simple, sustaining act of smiling. It's the essential power source.
The profound power of this text for me lies in that idea. The idea that the vehicle, the thing that got you there to the highest spiritual and physical goal, isn't some complex scripture or difficult ascetic practice,
No.
but the simple, accessible daily action of a conscious, intentional smile.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you finish this deep dive. If this practice demonstrates the power of a single, simple, accessible daily action, when it's repeated with intention and awareness, to become the essential starting point for the deepest forms of connection, well, you have to ask yourself,
What simple daily act in your routine could be transformed?
perhaps it's the way you tie your shoes in the morning.
Or the first sip of coffee? Or the action of checking your calendar? What simple, repeatable action can you infuse with the total intention of your heart, your mind, your soul, and your imagination?
Turning it into your own intentional means of communication.
And thereby setting the necessary foundation for a breakthrough in clarity and sustained connection in your own life.
The complexity of connection, it seems, is often hidden right beneath the surface of the simplest action.
We hope this deep dive into your sources provided the comprehensive analysis and the aha moments you were looking for. Until next time, keep digging.